Since they first appeared in 1961's Fantastic Four #1, the Fantastic Four has become a mainstay of the Marvel Universe, earning their place as Marvel's first family. That issue introduced us to the classic team: Reed Richards, the super-stretching genius Mr. Fantastic; Sue Storm, the force field projecting Invisible Girl, or, as she's currently known, the Invisible Woman; Johnny Storm, Sue's hot-headed little brother, the Human Torch; and Reed's best friend, Ben Grimm, aka the ever-lovin' blue-eyed Thing. Like any family, the Fantastic Four has gained new members over the years. Yeah, a lot of new members, and even lost a few. But it always comes back to those classic four members. And that family makes its full MCU debut in Marvel Studios' The Fantastic Four: First Steps. So, who are they? How did they first come together? Can Reed stop sciencing long enough to enjoy his family? Will Sue ever overcome her malicious alter ego? Will Ben ever accept his monstrous form? And can Johnny ever keep a girlfriend for more than a couple of issues? We're here to answer all those questions and more. This is Marvel Recap: The Fantastic Four, with a special shout out to the official handbook of the Marvel Universe research team for their help. Let's start out by going back to see the four before they were fantastic, starting with team leader Reed Richards. A child prodigy, Reed was a university student by the age of 14 and earned multiple degrees during his teenage years. He was raised by his genius father, Nathaniel Richards. Although, when Reed was a teenager, Nathaniel left to join the Brotherhood of the Shield, a secret society dedicated to protecting the Earth, which would eventually lead to the formation of the super spy and peacekeeping organization known as S.H.I.E.L.D. Ben Grimm had a very different childhood. Growing up on the tough streets of Manhattan's Yancey Street, he idolized his brother, Daniel Grimm, leader of the Yancey Street Gang, who died in a gang fight when Ben was just a kid. Ben's grief turned to anger, and after an initiation where he stole a Star of David from his neighbor, Mr. Scheckerberg, he joined the Yancey Street Gang. And by his teenage years, he'd worked his way up to become head of the gang himself, until the night his uncle, Dr. Jacob Grimm, told him that his parents were dead. Suddenly alone, Ben moved in with Jacob and his wife Elise out west, and they taught him to channel and control his anger. And it worked. As Ben learned to focus on his schoolwork, he became a high school football star. His success didn't go over well in his old neighborhood, as the Yancey Street Gang hated him for leaving, leading them to repeatedly attack him with pranks, even after he became the Thing. But years later, Ben was able to make peace with Mr. Scheckerberg when he saved his pawn shop from the villainous Powder Keg, and even returned the Star of David he'd stolen all those years ago. When Scheckerberg asked Ben why nobody mentions that the Thing is Jewish, Ben said he wasn't ashamed. He just figured there was enough trouble in this world without everyone thinking that Jewish people are all monsters like him. But Scheckerberg argued that Ben's actually a protector, like the legendary Golem, and gave him the Star of David to protect. Reed ended up attending State University, where he met Latvian science student Victor von Doom. Reed offered to be roommates, but Victor turned him down and stormed off. Luckily, a guy in the hall was looking for a roomie, Ben Grimm. When Reed explained that he was working on building an experimental rocket, Ben joked that if Reed ever built that rocket, he'd fly it. Ben lived up to his word, as after college, he joined the Air Force and became a test pilot. Sue and Johnny grew up with their parents, Dr. Franklin and Mary Storm. But their happy childhood ended with their parents' car crash. Franklin was forced to operate on Mary, only to lose her on the operating table. Racked with guilt, he gave up medicine and started gambling, eventually being accused of the murder of his loan shark and sentenced to 20 years to life for manslaughter. Sue and Johnny went to live at their Aunt Mary Dinkins' boarding house, where they were soon joined by a new lodger, Reed Richards, who just finished his 3rd doctorate. Ben helped Reed move in and met Sue Storm for the first time. Sue and Reed soon went on their first date. But shortly after, Reed decided to move out. Sue was devastated, until he revealed that he was leaving because he couldn't stop thinking about her, which had lowered his productivity by 46%. Then they smooched. When Reed's rocket, the Marvel 1, was close to completion, he tracked down Ben to be the pilot. By then, the courts had given custody of Johnny to Sue, who was also trying to start an acting career. When Reed showed Ben, Sue, and Johnny his rocket plans, Johnny became determined to go along, pushing Ben to get him into astronaut training to be the mission's backup pilot. And while Ben dismissed Johnny as a kid, and the other NASA astronauts were convinced that Johnny would wash out due to his immaturity, he completed the training to become a NASA pilot. It was just in time, as two of the intended crewmates, astronauts Sandy Sanders and Duke Dukeman, pulled out of the mission, saying there wasn't enough radiation shielding. Reed was all set to redesign the cockpit so he could fly it alone until Ben, Sue, and Johnny volunteered to go with him. Or, as Sue explained, "You know how hungry Reed is to reach the stars. We need to be with him to make sure he remembers to come home." As the flight approached, Ben tried to pull out, saying Reed hadn't done enough research on the effects of cosmic rays. But Sue argued that they had to take that chance unless they wanted the Russians to beat them, calling Ben a coward. But nobody calls Ben Grimm a coward. Believing there was no time to wait for official clearance, the team snuck into the base under the cover of darkness and flew the rocket right into a storm of cosmic rays. After crash landing, they discovered the rays had affected each of them in different ways. Sue could turn invisible. Ben transformed into a hulking, rocky behemoth. Reed could stretch himself like a rubber band. And Johnny could burst into flames and fly. Pledging to use their fantastic powers to help mankind, they each chose the names that would come to define them: the Invisible Girl, the Thing, Mr. Fantastic, and the Human Torch. And so was born the Fantastic Four. The world got its first glimpse of the Fantastic Four when they went up against massive, kaiju-esque subterranean monsters, rising up to menace humanity, led by the Mole Man. Originally a regular human man named Harvey Elder, who was mocked and shunned for his homely appearance, he abandoned the surface world, only to stumble upon Subterranea, an underground network of tunnels that stretched across the globe. Elder befriended the monsters that lived there, becoming their leader. Sometime later, he then sent them to attack the world that had shunned him, only to be defeated when the Human Torch melted the entrance to the Mole Man's kingdom forever. Well, for at least a couple of issues, as he would go on to become one of the Fantastic Four's longest-running foes. Over the next 50 issues, the Fantastic Four met and battled many of their longest-running foes, starting with the shape-shifting alien race, the Skrulls. The Skrulls used their powers to impersonate the team, turning the Earth against the team to ease the way for an invasion. But when the team thwarted the aliens' plan, it turned out these particular Skrulls hated being Skrulls, and they quickly agreed to be hypnotized and live out their lives as ordinary cows. Years later, the team discovered that the milk from those cows had mutated the nearby town of King's Crossing into shape-shifting monsters. But after Reed dosed everyone with an antidote, everything went back to normal. Until it turned out some of those Skrull cows were turned into hamburgers, granting several people who ate them shape-shifting powers and the ability to sense Skrull activities. Those infected banded together to hunt down other Skrulls as the Skrull Kill Crew. However, other Skrulls would return to Earth over the decades, including the Super Skrull, who used his shape-changing powers and Skrull technology to simulate all the Fantastic Four's powers at once. The team really started taking shape in Fantastic Four #3, which introduced a number of iconic elements, like their flying Fantasticar and their longtime headquarters, the Baxter Building. And Sue unveiled the iconic costumes she made for the team, including a helmet for Ben, although that didn't last long. We also got our first real fight between Johnny and Ben, teasing a jovial rivalry that would last for decades. Tempers have always run hot on the team, and early in their career together, Johnny quit the team after an argument with Ben. Ending up in a flophouse hotel, he found a beat-up old comic mag from the 1940s about Namor, the Submariner. Coincidentally, some of the other tenants mentioned they knew a stumblebum who was as strong as Namor, prompting Johnny to give the man a fiery shave, revealing the Prince of Atlantis himself, albeit with amnesia. After Johnny dropped him in the ocean, Namor regained his memories, only to discover that Atlantis had been destroyed by mankind's atomic testing. Enraged, the former superhero retaliated by sending the aquatic monster Giganto to attack the surface world, controlling him with an Atlantean trumpet horn. The Thing defeated Giganto the old-fashioned way, by strapping a nuclear bomb to his back and marching down its throat. Then, Sue stole Namor's horn and, after one look at the invisible girl, his heart. He was smitten and demanded that she become his bride. To stop Namor, Sue agreed, but we never found out if she would have gone through with it, as Johnny used his powers to create a vortex that tossed Namor, as well as Giganto's corpse, out to sea. The team met their most famous and dangerous foe in Fantastic Four number 5, when the Baxter Building was suddenly caught in a gigantic net, which is the type of intricate, devious plan that could only be the work of Reed's old college rival, Victor Von Doom, now calling himself Dr. Doom. Doom took the Four to his fortress, where he kept Sue hostage while he sent Reed, Johnny, and Ben through time to bring him Blackbeard's treasure chest. Arriving in the past, they disguised themselves as pirates, giving Ben a very fetching beard. In fact, it was such a good disguise that a pirate crew took Ben as their leader, making Reed realize that Ben was Blackbeard. When they had the chest, Ben refused to leave, saying that in their own time, he was nothing but a monster, a freak. But here, I'm somebody. He ordered the pirates to tie up Reed and Johnny, setting them adrift in a lifeboat. That's when a sudden typhoon hit the ship, washing the team ashore. And it brought Ben to his senses, saying he must have got carried away by being accepted as a normal man, even if it was only by a band of cutthroat pirates. Doom brought them to the present, only to reveal the reason he wanted the treasure chest. It was full of gems that once belonged to Merlin the magician, which would render the owner invincible. He opened it to find the gems gone, lost to the typhoon. The Thing tried to clobber him, only to discover that Doom was actually a Doom bot, while the real Doom flew away. Reed said they'd devote their lives to tracking him down, and, as we'll soon see, he wasn't kidding. Another recurring FF villain was Philip Masters, aka the Puppet Master, who used radioactive clay puppets to control people. His plan? To fool the Fantastic Four by manipulating the Thing and disguising his blind stepdaughter, Alicia Masters, as Sue. The Puppet Master failed when Alicia rebelled against him, causing him to drop a puppet of himself, which made him trip and fall out of a window. On the bright side, Alicia and Ben hit it off, and soon they were a couple. The team found their first prospective new member when the Amazing Spider-Man invaded the Baxter Building to audition for the team, only to leave when he discovered they were a non-profit organization. But they didn't need any additional powers, as Sue soon discovered that she had more than anyone realized. After another sparring round between Ben and Johnny, Ben tried blasting him with a fire extinguisher, only to have Sue stop it with a force field. Not only could she project invisible force fields strong enough to stop Ben, she also discovered she could use her powers to make other things or people invisible too. And while we can't cover every long-running villain the team went up against, we have to mention some fan favorites, like the Red Ghost, a Russian agent who used cosmic rays to give superpowers to himself and his trio of trained apes. The Molecule Man, a worker in an atomic lab who was bombarded with radiation only to gain the ability to control every molecule in the universe, which he used to freeze his boss. And Diablo, an immortal alchemist from the Middle Ages who the Fantastic Four accidentally freed while traveling in Transylvania, and who used his alchemical potions to achieve short-lived miracles, like making flowers grow really fast. But one of the team's most heartbreaking battles was against a family member, Sue and Johnny's dad, Franklin Storm. He'd used his prison laboratory to give himself the powers of the Fantastic Four, dubbing himself the Invincible Man. Or at least it looked like Franklin. It actually turned out to be the Super Skrull in disguise, who quickly escaped, returning the real Franklin with a bomb attached to him. Franklin's final act was turning away from his kids, sacrificing himself to make sure they were safe, dying as a hero. But the F4's life wasn't all battles, as Reed proposed to Sue while visiting State University. And after an engagement party with the X-Men and the Avengers, their wedding day soon arrived. That's when Doom used an emotion charger device to cause a vast collection of supervillains to attack the happy couple, only to face some powerful wedding guests: the X-Men, the Avengers, Daredevil, and Doctor Strange. It was truly a star-studded affair. Afterwards, Nick Fury had to kick out two other party crashers, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, the creators of the Fantastic Four. Johnny got his first serious brush with romance when he met a mysterious girl named Crystal with elemental powers. She turned out to be part of a whole race of superpowered beings known as the Inhumans. It was later revealed that they were descended from humans who'd been experimented on by the alien race, the Kree, as a failed plan to create living weapons for their empire. And despite Johnny's attempts to get the Inhumans king, Black Bolt, to let Crystal go with him, the pair were separated when Atalan, the Inhumans' hidden refuge in the Himalayas, was cut off from the rest of the Earth. Shortly thereafter, the Fantastic Four faced their greatest threat yet, Galactus, the World Devourer. The team first received a dire warning from Uatu, a member of the alien race known as the Watchers, who were sworn to document history and never interfere with events, although Uatu often does. A classic Uatu Oathbreaker moment was warning Earth of the coming of Galactus, a being of immense power who drained entire planets of their life energy, leaving them barren and dead. Galactus was preceded by his herald, the Silver Surfer, who summoned his master, but the thing swiftly clobbered the soarer of the spaceways. But Galactus soon arrived to devour the world, despite the team's attempts to stop him. Meanwhile, the Surfer landed on the roof of Alicia Master's workshop, where she pleaded with him to realize that all life on Earth matters. The Surfer, sensing her courage, was touched, and though he served Galactus, he felt a new emotion: pity. The Thing managed to take out Galactus's energy converter before slamming a ball-shaped reed into him, while the Watcher, interfering again, sent Johnny Storm to Galactus's world ship to retrieve the one object that could stop the World Devourer. Back at Alicia's studio, she pleaded with the Surfer, asking if he could stand by as a whole world was destroyed. Finally moved to action, he flew off to battle his master. Johnny returned with what he was seeking, the Ultimate Nullifier, a weapon capable of destroying the universe. Shocked that the Watcher would give the weapon to a human, Galactus gave his word that he would not destroy the Earth if Reed surrendered the Nullifier. But before leaving, Galactus removed the Silver Surfer's ability to leave the planet, trapping him on Earth. Alicia thanked the Surfer, not realizing that a jealous Ben was listening, and the Surfer flew off to explore his new planet. In that same issue, Johnny moved out of the Baxter Building to go to Metro College, hoping he could put Crystal behind him. He soon met his new roommate, Wyatt Wingfoot, who would become a longtime friend and ally to the team. And while it doesn't feature a recurring villain or even a named villain, we should mention one of the most beloved Fantastic Four stories, This Man, This Monster. In it, Ben was befriended by a mysterious, unnamed scientist who's jealous of Reed's money and fame. After drugging Ben's coffee, the scientist enacted his plan to prove that he was Reed's superior, using a device to transform him into a duplicate of the Thing, while also turning Ben back into a human. At the Baxter Building, the scientist, disguised as Ben, helped Reed and Sue with an interdimensional experiment, surprised at how they were tackling a dangerous job without earning a cent. Reed traveled to a crossroad of dimensions, only to find himself heading toward a deadly antimatter universe. But when Reed signaled for Ben to pull him in, nothing happened. On the other end of the rope, all the scientist had to do to kill Reed was let go. But he couldn't believe how brave and unselfish Reed actually was. He decided to save Reed, only for the rope to snap, barely having a chance to grab the end before it pulled him into the rift. The scientist ended up with Reed, who said that they're both doomed and that he wanted him to know he was the greatest partner a man ever had. Moved, the scientist tossed Reed back to Earth, feeling that it was the one worthwhile thing he ever did in his wasted life. He then met his fate, contented and secure in the knowledge that he was luckier than most, as he finally learned what it meant to have a friend. Meanwhile, across town, Ben was about to knock on Alicia's door, hoping that she could still recognize him in his human form. That's when the process wore off, and he turned back into the ever-loving, blue-eyed thing. In the Baxter building, Reed and Sue mourned the loss of Ben until he showed up. And when Ben asked about his imposter, Reed was sure some of Ben's heroism reached out into the void to affect him. And whatever monstrous things he had done in the past, he paid the full price. Decades later, the graphic novel Fantastic Four: Full Circle would reveal that the scientist survived in the negative zone, where he'd followed in the Fantastic Four's footsteps by helping others with his scientific knowledge, although he was forced to stay in an armored suit due to the zone's antimatter. That is, until Reed was able to shape a suit out of his unstable molecules that could turn the man into antimatter, freeing him from his curse. Oh, and they finally learn his name, Ricardo Jones, before he helped send them home. Afterwards, Johnny told Ben he should be beaming, as that guy's life really improved when he dressed up as Ben. But Ben was not surprised, cause he's a great guy. A short while after the coming of Galactus, the team started to get a little larger, as Sue discovered she was pregnant, asking Ben to be the godfather. Unfortunately, the cosmic radiation in Sue's blood was endangering the baby, and the only element that could save them both was antimatter, which could only be found in the dimension known as the negative zone. Reed, Johnny, and Ben ventured there to find it, only to face its ruler, Annihilus, the living death that walks, a being that was made immortal by his cosmic control rod. While fighting Annihilus's minions, Reed realized that the cosmic control rod was exactly what he needed to save Sue. He stole it, but was forced to return it in trade for the repeller units they needed to escape, although he managed to siphon off some antimatter before they left. They arrived at the hospital with enough time to give Sue some nice, healthy antimatter. After some tense minutes in the waiting room, she gave birth to a son, Franklin B. Richards, named for her late father. Oh, and the B stood for Benjamin, which helped make Ben feel like he was part of a family, instead of a loner freak show. While Sue was on maternity leave, Crystal took her place on the team, as Black Bolt had freed the Inhumans from their hidden sanctum by yelling at it. The Council of Elders decided that the Inhuman royal family would return to the human world while the city was being rebuilt, reuniting Crystal and Johnny. Sue wasn't gone long, though, and to look after Franklin during missions, they hired a full-time nanny, noted witch Agatha Harkness. A few months later, Crystal suddenly collapsed, and Reed discovered that she was allergic to Earth's pollution, forcing her to return to Atalan, the Inhumans' hidden city. Unable to live without her, Johnny quit the team to join her. Around this time, Reed joined the Illuminati, a group of superhuman leaders consisting of Tony Stark, Dr. Strange, Professor X, Black Bolt, and Namor. Over the years, the group would secretly meet and shape events around the world, keeping their actions hidden from even their closest teammates and loved ones. Thankfully, their backdoor shenanigans would have no long-term repercussions. During a battle with the supervillain team, the Frightful Four, Franklin started showing signs of psychic powers. But the real problem was when Reed ordered Sue to leave the battle, saying he wouldn't let the mother of his child fight. Furious that he wouldn't treat her as an equal, she left him and the team. Back in the Inhumans' hidden city of Atalan, Johnny soon discovered that Crystal was in love with Quicksilver. So he was quickly back on the team, and Sue's place was taken over by the queen of the Inhumans, Medusa. When Franklin's psychic powers grew even stronger, Reed was forced to shoot him with an antimatter gun, shutting down his mind. Horrified, the rest of the team turned on Reed, with Ben declaring it was the end of the Fantastic Four. Not long after, Sue filed for divorce with Reed, only to be kidnapped by Namor. When the team tracked them both down, Sue refused to return, declaring her love for Namor. But when Namor sent an army to attack the surface world, Ben convinced Sue that Reed truly did love her, and they reconciled. Namor left, but it turned out this was all a plot between him and the Inhumans to get Reed and Sue back together again. Matchmaking in the mighty Marvel manner. And soon, Sue rejoined the team, and Medusa returned to Atalan. But the Fantastic Four were soon there as well, attending the wedding of Crystal and Quicksilver. That's when Ultron attacked the wedding party with a psychic blast strong enough to wake Franklin from his coma, who then destroyed the rogue robot. And seeing Franklin back to normal was, in the words of Ben, enough to make a grown man cry. During a battle with the Hulk, Ben suddenly turned human again, so Reed hired a replacement, Luke Cage, aka Power Man. But he probably didn't expect Cage to throw a sofa at Sue and attack the rest of the team before flying off in the Fantastic Car. But Cage was only meant to be a temp, as Reed had secretly developed a Thing armor for Ben to wear that simulated his strength and durability. Cage's attack was secretly a ploy by the Puppet Master to break himself out of prison, but it was stopped by the now armored Thing. Forced to choose between his freedom and saving Alicia, the Puppet Master chose Alicia, freeing Luke Cage from his control. Finally free of the curse of his rocky form, Ben planned to ask Alicia to marry him, but only a few issues later, he suddenly transformed back into the Thing, destroying his armor in the process. The team added another member when Reed invented a robot to help him with his calculations, Herbie, which stands for Humanoid Experimental Robot, B-Type, Integrated Electronics. Although Reed admitted he was inspired by a similar robot that was added to a Fantastic Four cartoon, one of the many licensed projects with their names and likenesses the team uses to fund their research. In this case, the cartoon created a robot to replace Johnny, who was out of town when the team signed the contracts. But OG Herbie wouldn't be with the team for long, as the evil cyborg Dr. Sun took over his programming, forcing him to attack the team. Reed was able to overcome his control by stretching into the Baxter Building's computer system, giving the little robot just enough time to destroy himself to save the team. But don't worry, Reed later rebuilt Herbie, although he may have harbored some resentment, as when his language sensor was later removed, he immediately cursed out the Fantastic Four. But while they lost a member of their extended family, they soon gained a new one when Johnny's latest girlfriend, Frankie Ray, turned out to have flame powers. Her stepfather was Professor Phineas Horton, creator of the original Human Torch, the android that fought alongside Namor and Captain America in World War II as part of the Invaders, and first appeared on the cover of 1939's Marvel Comics #1. As a teenager, Frankie spilled some chemicals from her dad's lab on herself, which gave her those fiery powers, although the professor hypnotized her to forget them. Reed offered her a place on the team, renaming the team to the Fantastic Five. But that wasn't the only big change to the team, as another attempt by Reed to cure Ben's condition transformed his rocky form back to his original, less evolved form. That's when a new herald of Galactus, Terrax, arrived and levitated the island of Manhattan, threatening to destroy it unless the Fantastic Four killed Galactus. They didn't. Annoyed at yet another of his heralds rebelling, Galactus restored the island before removing Terrax's power. But Galactus was so weak, he needed to devour Earth's energy to survive. Luckily, the Fantastic Four were helped by the Avengers and Doctor Strange, who used the Images of Icon spell to confront Galactus with the ghosts of all that he'd slain, staggering him enough to give Reed time to slingshot Ben into him. And finally, Galactus fell. But as Galactus lay dying, Reed said they had to save him. Cap agreed, saying he was a sentient being and didn't act out of evil intent. Reed built a power adapter, and with a jump start from Thor's hammer Mjolnir, Galactus was revived. While Reed found 6 uninhabited worlds for Galactus to feed on, Big G was too low on energy to travel without knowing if they'd work. Until Frankie offered to become Galactus's new herald. He transformed her into Nova, who eagerly left the Earth and Johnny behind. Soon, Sue revealed that she was pregnant again, prompting the couple to move out into the country to make a normal life for Franklin and the baby, although they planned to remain on the team. But a normal life is hard to come by in the Richards household, especially when Franklin used his nearly limitless powers to age himself into an adult body, taking out the team as he tried to figure out who he was. But after Sue recognized him, he used his powers to restore Ben to his rocky form before turning himself back into a kid. But not before installing blocks on his powers, so they wouldn't manifest again until he was old enough to use them. Reed explained to Ben that Franklin couldn't actually cure him, despite his near-limitless powers. Reed theorized that it's because Ben secretly thinks Alicia only loves him as the Thing. As long as he loves her, his mind will reject all cures, and he'll always be the Thing. Remember Terrax? Apparently Doom did, as he rescued the former Herald, now back to his original name of Tyros, and used an energy mechanism to give Tyros a fraction of his old cosmic power, before pointing him at the Fantastic Four. But when Doom became impatient while waiting for Richards, he confronted Tyros, who fused him into his armor, leaving Doom as an immobile statue. The Silver Surfer battled Tyros, whose body was overwhelmed by the power cosmic, and crashed into Doom's body, leaving only his mask behind. Reed's merciful treatment of Galactus came back to haunt him as he was put on trial by the Shi'ar Magistrix Lilandra for the crime of saving Galactus, who had now consumed the Skrull homeworld and 7 billion of its inhabitants. Reed defended himself, saying that he did save Galactus' life, but that Galactus is beyond good and evil, and that his existence must be serving some greater purpose. But despite some last-minute testimony by Odin, who claimed that Galactus is a force that tests worlds, the court was not convinced. That is, until Galactus appeared, calling Reed Richards his friend. Galactus and the Watcher summoned Eternity, the personification of all things in the universe, who shared the cosmic truth of Galactus' importance as part of the natural order of the universe with everyone in the court. Unable to ignore that evidence, Reed was set free and returned to Earth. When Ben, Reed, and Johnny visited Central Park to investigate a mysterious, unknown structure, they were transported to the alien planet Battleworld, where the cosmic entity known as the Beyonder forced heroes and villains to fight each other as part of the Secret Wars. But when Galactus attempted to devour the energies of Battleworld, Dr. Doom stole his energies before turning on the Beyonder and stealing his power too. Doom used that power to heal his face and blow up his enemies, only to have the Beyonder reclaim the power, then restore Doom to his scarred form before returning him to Earth. Meanwhile, Ben discovered that Battleworld also allowed him to turn human at will. So when everyone was leaving Battleworld, Ben chose to stay, unable to resist a chance to feel normal again. He picked Jennifer Walters, the sensational She-Hulk, to replace him on the team. Although it wasn't a permanent goodbye, Reed left him with a transporter that would allow him to return to Earth if he changed his mind. Sue and Alicia were on hand to welcome the team home, only for Sue to get hit with a blast of radiation from her unborn baby. And despite Reed consulting with experts on radiation, including Dr. Otto Octavius, the baby didn't survive. Troubled by some missing memories, Reed took the team to the Richards family estate in Central City, where he discovered the hidden science lab of his father, Nathaniel Richards, along with Nathaniel's time platform. Convinced that Nathaniel had become lost in time, Reed used the time platform to follow him, only to discover him ruling a parallel world that had been devastated by a war between Earth and a moon colony. With Ben gone, Alicia and Johnny grew closer. Much closer, which was a problem when Ben returned from Battleworld and went to Alicia's apartment, only to find a shirtless Johnny. They fought, with Ben only stopping after Alicia admitted that she and Johnny were in love, prompting Ben to leave the team. Oh, and Franklin's powers had also gotten so strong he destroyed the demon Mephisto with his mind. But we'll get back to Franklin's powers later. Instead, let's follow the Thing on his travels as he worked as a motorcycle daredevil before traveling to Las Vegas to join the Unlimited Class Wrestling Federation, which specialized in superhuman wrestling. While there, he befriended stuntwoman Sharon Ventura, who wanted superpowers to get into wrestling. She purchased some from the shadowy underworld figure known as the Power Broker. Taking on the name of Ms. Marvel, Sharon and the Thing teamed up to take down the Power Broker, only for the Thing to start suddenly mutating into a hideous new form. Ashamed, Ben abandoned society, deciding to just let whatever was happening to his body kill him. Back in New York, Doom returned to launch the Baxter Building into space, where it promptly blew up. Luckily, Sue was able to save everyone with a force bubble. They traveled to Latveria to confront Doom, only to discover that this Doom was actually Christoph, a Latverian orphan that Doom had adopted and who had been implanted with Doom's memories by his Doombots. Not knowing what to do with him, they decided to take him back with them to the US. But soon, the team faced one of their trickiest foes, Sue herself. Or rather, her evil alter ego, Malice, Mistress of Hate. Sue was manipulated by the Psycho Man, a scientist from the microverse that can use his Psycho Ray to transform people's emotions into hate, fear, or doubt. And aided by his assistant, the homunculus Hatemonger, Psycho Man transformed Sue into Malice, who took out all her anger and resentment on her team and proved more dangerous and inventive with using her force field powers than Sue, smashing up She-Hulk, turning Reed into a pincushion, and using her force fields to cut off the oxygen to Johnny's flames. Reed was able to snap Sue out of it by making her really angry with him, betting that the Psycho Man's reversal would turn that hate into love. But all Sue wanted was vengeance, declaring that while she spent most of her adult life following Reed into battle, this time it was her turn. The team followed Psycho Man to the microverse, where Sue got her revenge by punishing him by using the full force of his Psycho Ray against him. But while Sue was relieved, she also realized that the experience had forced her to truly confront who she was. She felt that the invisible girl died when she became Malice, so from now on, she would be the Invisible Woman. But soon, the real Doom returned, kind of. You see, when Terrax imprisoned him in his armor, Doom used a mind transfer power he had learned from the alien Ovoids to switch minds with local sporting goods salesman Norm MacArthur. And after taking control of Norm's body, he used it to construct new gadgets and technology. Disguising himself as the Invincible Man, Doom tricked Sue, She-Hulk, and the Wasp into attacking the Latverian embassy, only to quickly betray them. And while Sue impressed Doom with her new force field skills, he soon defeated Sue and the rest of the crew, as well as Johnny and Reed when they came to help. Doom's plan was to use the Fantastic Four to gain entry into the Latverian embassy, where he could use black magic to summon the Beyonder to restore his body, who was none too happy about it. But before the Beyonder could kill Doom, Reed told him to stop. He pointed out that the Beyonder had met a future version of Doom during Secret Wars, so he needed to spare Doom to prevent a paradox. A paradox that was powerful enough that it could destroy time and even the Beyonder himself. So, the Beyonder created a new body for Doom, restoring him to normal before vanishing. While searching for Ben, the team discovered him on Monster Isle, home of the Mole Man, who was training him to eventually take over as leader of the monsters and moloids. Ben didn't want to leave, as he'd found a place to live with real friends who didn't think he was ugly or a thing. But Ben's loyalty was tested when Mole Man captured Alicia, who had come looking for Johnny. Also, Mole Man disfigured Johnny, turning him into a monster. Plus, Reed convinced Ben that Mole Man's plans would demolish the entire Pacific coast. So, you can probably guess what time it was. But as the Mole Man's base collapsed, Ben convinced him to restore Johnny as one last act of friendship before he escaped underground. The team and Alicia escaped the island on a life raft, and Ben was back on the team. Although he'd start wearing a helmet to hide his mutations, only to stop wearing it after a single mission. Guess he was feeling better. The team soon moved into their replacement to the Baxter Building, 4 Freedoms Plaza. Johnny asked Alicia to marry him, and Ben wasn't happy about it, but after a stress-relieving sparring match with She-Hulk, Ben agreed to be Johnny's best man. With the Thing back on the team, She-Hulk left to rejoin the Avengers, and when Reed and Sue decided to finally step back and focus on raising Franklin, they offered Ben the leadership spot of the team. But before that could happen, Doom returned, again, taking Franklin to Latveria. In the confusion, Kristoff, who still believed himself to be Doom, used one of Doom's robots to escape For Freedom's Plaza. He returned to Latveria, where he challenged the other Doom for leadership, starting a civil war that the F4 refused to be part of. Reed, Sue, and Franklin finally left for the suburbs, leaving Ben in charge of the team, joined by Johnny, Crystal, now taking a serum for her allergy to pollution, and Sharon Ventura. While returning from a mission in space, Ben and Sharon kissed for the first time, only to be quickly bombarded by cosmic rays, which turned Ben into a pointier, rocky form and transformed Sharon into a she-thing. They were surprisingly fine with it, as Sharon was sure that the Thing would still love her in this new form and might finally get over Alicia. However, things were more awkward with Crystal and Johnny, who were feeling the romantic tension of being on the same team together, despite her marriage to Quicksilver. Eventually, it became too much for Crystal to handle, and after a heartfelt whisper from Black Bolt, Crystal left the team to return to Atalan, which had been moved from the Himalayas to the blue area of the moon, right next door to Uatu the Watcher. Meanwhile, Ben's rockier new form proved even more powerful than ever, which we saw when he was forced to once again battle his longtime rival, the Hulk. The Thing and the Hulk had first tussled way back in 1962's Fantastic Four number 12, when the team was recruited by General Thunderbolt Ross to find and destroy the Hulk, who he blamed for sabotaging army installations. Ben figured he'd be easy to beat, saying,
"He may be a big, brainless, rampaging Hulk, but remember this, kiddies, there's only one Thing."
But the Hulk proved much tougher than Ben thought, and before either of them could declare victory, the Hulk was blasted by the real saboteur, a Soviet agent known as the Wrecker, who the F4 quickly captured while the Hulk escaped. When the Thing and the Hulk fought again in Fantastic Four number 25, the Hulk was the clear winner, with Ben admitting that this was the first time anyone's beat him in a fight. And while the two have fought several more times over the years, the Hulk has proved to be the stronger of the two. So, when Dr. Doom goaded the Hulk, now his gray Mr. Fix-It persona, to attack Ben, pointing out that Ben was now leader of the Fantastic Four, while the Hulk was just working as a Las Vegas enforcer, you'd think it'd go the same way. But Ben was able not only to hold his own against the Hulk, but put him down for the count. Until another Hulk suddenly popped up, who Ben punched into the Rockettes. This Hulk turned out to be a robot version controlled by Doom, which Ben was able to tear apart with his rocky mitts. That's when the real Hulk lured Ben to Central Park, where he knocked him underwater and suffocated him. When Ben finally crawled up to the shore, the Hulk laid him out with one last punch. Ben's run as team leader would be short-lived, as Reed and Sue couldn't stay out of the superhero game for long. They first joined a new team of the Avengers, before almost immediately rejoining the Fantastic Four to help Johnny, who'd become trapped in his fiery form. Reed constructed a machine to cure him, only for the supervillain team, the Frightful Four, to knock Ben into it, turning him human. Despite his lack of powers, he was still able to rescue the team when they were captured. Just to be safe, he started wearing his old Thing armor again, making them a team of 5. When the rogue Skrull Delilah captured the Fantastic Four, she recruited a new Fantastic Four, made up of Wolverine, Ghost Rider, Spider-Man, and the Grey Hulk, convincing them that the original Fantastic Four died on a mission as an excuse to send them after the Skrulls that she was running from. She sent the team on a mission to infiltrate Mole Man's Monster Isle, only to be joined by the original team, who were able to escape Delilah thanks to Franklin. And the Skrull was ultimately taken out by a blast of the Ghost Rider's penance stare. And soon, Doom returned. Again. Yeah, the Doom that had been fighting Kristoff was a Doombot, which was quickly destroyed. Doom restored Kristoff's mind and memories before resuming control of Latveria. The newly restored Doom offered to transform Sharon Ventura back into her human form, claiming that the process would revolutionize genetic engineering, allowing Latveria to rebuild its treasury. Sharon agreed, and he was true to his word, turning her human, just as Ben, aware that Sharon felt isolated in her she-thing form, used a device of Reed's to turn himself back into the Thing. That's when one of Doom's robots dropped by to tell them he'd captured Sharon. They all traveled to Latveria, including a newly restored Thing, in order to fight Doom. But just when Ben had Doom on the ropes, Sharon betrayed him. The only one left standing was Reed, who agreed to duel with Doom across time to decide the fate of his family. They battled between seconds, evenly matched, until Doom was blasted by agents of the Time Variance Authority, an organization that monitors and controls time travel throughout the multiverse. The TVA agents destroyed Doom and arrested the F4, but the Doom that died was actually Kristoff, who had switched places with the real Doom during the duel. The team managed to escape the TVA and travel back to Earth by the usual methods, specifically by hijacking a cross-time railroad. But just when it looked like things might have calmed down, the team learned that Alicia was actually a Skrull named Lyja, who'd been sent to gather information on the Fantastic Four and replaced the original Alicia when Ben, Reed, and Johnny went off to Battleworld. When Ben didn't return, she turned her attention to Johnny, flirting with him, and ultimately marrying him. But she said that she really did fall in love with Johnny, and that she was even carrying his baby. With Lyja's help, the team traveled to a Skrull planet to rescue Alicia, battling Pybok, the Power Skrull. But before Pybok could blast Johnny, Lyja dove in between them, taking the hit and seemingly dying from her wounds. They returned to Earth with the real Alicia, who hugged Ben while Johnny looked on sadly. During the Infinity War storyline, the Magus, an evil alternate future version of the cosmic being Adam Warlock, created evil doppelgangers of many of Earth's heroes in a bid to conquer the universe. During the conflict, Galactus performed a cerebral scan on many of the heroes, which brought Sue face to face with Malice. They battled across Sue's mind, with Malice hurling razor-sharp Invisiblades while demanding Sue unleash her true self and accept that she is the most powerful, deadliest member of the Fantastic Four. But while Sue knocked Malice out by ramming the variant into an invisible stone arch, she admitted that Malice's strength could come in handy, so she absorbed Malice into her conscious mind. The result? A more assertive and aggressive Sue, who also adopted a slightly more revealing costume. A short while later, Lyja was back from the dead and looking to slay Johnny for abandoning her and her unborn child. Now she was aided by Pybok the Power Skrull and Devos, an alien who wanted to prevent all wars by murdering all enemies of peace, and who the F4 had met and defeated a short time ago in Fantastic Four number 359. During the fight, Johnny was forced to use his full-force Nova Blast, destroying much of Empire State University. Johnny was arrested for it, but Lyja and Pybok attacked a police station, forcing him to become a fugitive. To track Johnny down and convince him to surrender, his pal, Spider-Man, reassembled the old, new Fantastic Four team, adding in Doctor Strange. They located Johnny only to be confronted by the rest of the OG Fantastic Four. During the fight, Wolverine slashed the Thing's face with his claws. That's when Lyja, now calling herself Lyja the Laser Fist, showed up. And that's also when the team and Lyja were teleported away to Uatu's home on the moon, where he warned them that Doom had absorbed the power of the Rogue Watcher Aaron. Oh, and Ben's face was revealed, and it wasn't great. Ben quickly put on another helmet to hide the damage. The team, along with the Inhumans, battled Doom, who ordered Sharon to turn on the team again. She struggled, knowing that Doom cured her and her She-Thing form, but ultimately sided with her love, Ben. Reed used his scientific know-how to enhance Black Bolt's scream, causing Doom to overload and explode. When Sharon tried to talk to Ben about what happened with Doom, he brushed her off. But while they were out on that mission, Franklin's powers came back even stronger, overwhelming even Agatha Harkness. And when the team arrived home, they found Reed's dad, Nathaniel Richards, who said he was there to help Franklin. Nathaniel revealed that he'd witnessed a future where Franklin grew up and died fighting Sentinels, which readers might know as the classic X-Men story Days of Future Past. To prevent that future, Nathaniel kidnapped Franklin, returning him as a teenager who called himself Psy-Lord. Empire State offered to drop the charges against Johnny if the Fantastic Four gave over the rights to all of their patents. which they reluctantly agreed to do. But when Johnny went to court, where he was represented by Matt Murdock, aka Daredevil, he was attacked by the fearsome foursome made up of Pybok, Devos, Claw, Master of Sound, and Huntera, a futuristic barbarian princess. Huntera would eventually turn out to be Tara Richards, the daughter of Nathaniel Richards, making her Reed's half-sister. While the foursome was ultimately chased off by the Avengers, Sharon was secretly attacked by Doom's agents, and when Ben found her, she'd been mutated into a hideous monster. Ben traveled to Latveria to get a cure from Doom, who sympathized with Ben's damaged face and even offered to repair it and turn him human if he just served Doom, which Ben refused. The rest of the team, plus Lyja and Franklin, arrived to rescue Ben, just in time to witness Doom battling the alien vampire Hunger, who he managed to teleport away, but only after being horribly injured. Doom asked Reed for help with one last task he needed to accomplish: destroying Reed. And then he zapped them both into piles of ashes. After they returned to New York, Sue refused to believe that Reed was dead. That's when the team and Lyja were captured by Pybok and Devos, who transported them to the Skrull throne world, finally capturing them for the Skrull Empire after years of failed missions. And while it seemed like the Fantastic Four were finally doomed, Devos took this opportunity to attack the Skrull throne world to prevent it from ever committing war again. The team used this chance to escape, but when Sue learned that Lyja's baby needed a special Skrull medicine, she made that the priority, saying, "The FF is a family, and you're with us now, and we take care of our own." Sue managed to steal the medicine, saving Lyja's baby, before stealing a spaceship and returning to Earth. With Reed gone, the team needed someone to run their tech support, so Sue hired electronics expert Scott Lang, aka Ant-Man. Not long after that, Ben's face had healed enough for him to remove the helmet, although he still had some horrific scars. Lyja went into labor and delivered an egg. But it turned out Lyja wasn't pregnant with Johnny's kid, as the egg contained a shawberry, a creature implanted by Pybok inside Lyja to destroy the Fantastic Four. And while Lyja was able to destroy it by changing into its own form, Johnny was furious at the deception, leaving Lyja and the team. Without Johnny, Lyja also left the team, and that's when Sue decided to also leave the team to find Reed, who was lost somewhere in time and space, making Ben the Fantastic One. With the rest of the team gone, Psylord formed his own team, Fantastic Force, made up of himself, Huntera, the Inhuman Devlor, and the Wakandan warrior Vibraxis. On her quest to find Reed, Sue traveled to Latveria, where Nathaniel Richards had taken over Doom's castle and was looking for his missing son. But that son wasn't Reed, but the child of Nathaniel and a young Latverian woman. Wait, Reed's half-brother was Doom? No, because when Nathaniel pulled his son through time, it wasn't Doom. It was Kristoff. Kristoff joined Ben, Johnny, Sue, and Scott Lang in fighting the Rogue Watcher Aaron, defeating him with the help of Fantastic Force. And when Sue asked Ant-Man to officially join the team, he declined, but Kristoff gladly took his place. Later, in Latveria, Ben, Sue, Kristoff, and Namor discovered the original Dr. Doom, stolen from the past and held captive by a new villain, Hyperstorm, who claimed to also be holding Reed captive. He sent them to the past, where they found Reed, stranded in a time where the technology was too primitive to build a time machine. But with the help of Kristoff's time machine, they all returned to the present. They were quickly joined by Johnny, who rejoined the team when he heard that Reed was still alive. While the team fought Hyperstorm, Kristoff discovered that the time-displaced Doom had freed himself and planned to steal Hyperstorm's power, only for Hyperstorm to return Doom to the past before healing Ben's face and returning the team to New York. Only a few issues later, Hyperstorm kidnapped Franklin, returning him as the child he was before Nathaniel stole him. Nathaniel also revealed Hyperstorm's true origin. He's from a version of the timeline of Days of Future Past, where he was the son of Franklin and Rachel Summers, daughter of the X-Men's Jean Grey and Cyclops. And he shared that in every timeline Nathaniel had visited, Hyperstorm destroyed the Fantastic Four and their compatriots. But Reed had a new plan to stop Hyperstorm, using Galactus. When the team confronted Hyperstorm in a dimensional void, Reed summoned a hungry Galactus who fed off Hyperstorm's energies, trapping them both in the void, where Galactus could feed off Hyperstorm's limitless power forever. But just as the original team was finally back together, they soon faced the menace of Onslaught, an unstoppable being created from the combined energy and psyches of Professor X and Magneto. Reed assembled a team of the Fantastic Four's mightiest allies to fight Onslaught, and then joined with an even larger team made up of the X-Men and the Avengers. But in the end, the heroes sacrificed themselves to drain Onslaught's power, and of the entire Fantastic Four family, only Franklin survived. Was that the end of the Fantastic Four? Well, we next saw them in a brand new Fantastic Four #1, where we got a familiar but slightly different origin for the team, as they stole an experimental rocket, this time using kickboxing moves, only to collide with a stellar anomaly. After developing their powers, they faced the Mole Man and his giant monsters, but were able to escape by blinding them with giant diamonds. They ended up as prisoners of S.H.I.E.L.D., who recruited them to battle Namor, who was threatening the surface world with Giganto. The Avengers soon arrived to join the battle, and Ben took out Giganto by piloting a S.H.I.E.L.D. jet down his throat. It turned out these weren't different versions of the Fantastic Four, but the originals, who were saved by Franklin and put onto an alternate Earth in a pocket dimension. The Celestial, Ashima, ordered Franklin to decide which of the two Earths would be destroyed, but he ultimately decided on a compromise, preserving the Earth he made while returning the heroes to their original Earth. The Fantastic Four were officially back, although they had to move to a new base at Manhattan's Pier 4, as, while they were gone, the Thunderbolts, a team of superheroes that were secretly the supervillain team the Masters of Evil, had moved into Four Freedoms Plaza. While on a mission to the future, the team encountered Baroness Von Doom, an alternate future version of Sue who'd married Doom after Reed's death, along with her two teenage children, Franklin and Valeria Von Doom. When they returned to their time, Valeria accidentally time traveled, or as she called it, time danced, to their period, just in time for a bounty hunter named, Bounty to attack and then get punched by Valeria, aka Marvel Girl. Not to be confused with Jean Grey the Marvel Girl, who danced the Watusi at Sue and Reed's engagement party. Stranded in the present, Sue had a hard time adjusting to Valeria, as she was reminded of the baby she lost, Valerie. But she soon accepted Valeria as part of the team and part of the family. On the topic of Johnny's ever-changing love life, he started dating Namor's cousin, Namorita. To save Franklin from an upcoming disaster, Reed and Sue sent him to an alien world, Haven. That's when Doom finally returned from the Heroes Reborn world, and the upcoming disaster turned out to be Tiamat, the dreaming Celestial, who was exiled and imprisoned on Earth before he used Franklin's world to escape. And with the help of Ashima, the Fantastic Four and Doom were able to imprison Tiamat again, but not before he destroyed Reed while Doom survived. Soon, we learned that Tiamat transferred Doom's armor to Reed, trapping him inside it while Doom vanished. Reed was forced to pretend to be Doom in order to prevent Latvian generals from going rogue and destroying everything. To keep her safe, Reed asked Valeria to join Franklin on Haven. And as if to underline the danger, Reed was forced to battle Doom's generals to prove his superiority. To keep up the charade, Sue agreed to be Doom's consort, becoming Baroness Von Doom. They returned to Latveria, where Sue, worried that Reed was becoming poisoned by Doom's armor, helped Doom return to Earth. Doom removed Reed from the armor before saying they shall meet again. When the villainous alchemist Diablo burned down their Pier 4 headquarters, the team moved back to a new Baxter building, which took the place of Four Freedoms Plaza, which had been teleported to the moon by Ronan the Accuser. While Ben, Reed, and Sue were trapped in the negative zone, Johnny put together a new Fantastic Four with Namorita, She-Hulk, and Scott Lang, aka Ant-Man, facing off against the evil Gideon Corporation and an army of Herbies until the regular team returned. Ben traveled to Alicia's new home in Sunshine City, where they both admitted they'd fallen out of love, but decided to remain friends. When the skull of Galactus landed on Earth, the Fantastic Four tracked it back to the cosmic being Abraxas, who apparently loved killing alternate versions of Galactus and skywriting. Franklin and Valeria returned from space to help, and they learned that Abraxas was compelled to kill any multiversal creature that existed in multiple realities at the same time, like Galactus or former Herald Nova. To stop Abraxas, Franklin and Valeria combined their powers, and Franklin then revealed that Valeria was the baby that Sue thought she'd lost. Franklin had used his powers to send her through time and save her. Franklin and Valeria's combined powers were enough to resurrect this dimension's Galactus, who gave the ultimate nullifier to Reed, who then used it on Abraxas, and while bringing Galactus back to life, used up the last of Franklin's cosmic powers. He had just enough juice left to de-age Valeria, leaving Sue pregnant with her for the second time. When Sue went into labor, she almost lost the baby again, as it gave off massive amounts of energy. And with Ben and Reed trapped in the super prison, the Vault, Johnny asked Doom to help. By the time Ben and Reed escaped, the baby was born. Doom's price for helping? He only asked that he be able to name the girl, which Sue agreed to. He chose Valeria, the name of Doom's teenage love, as first seen in 1966's Marvel Superheroes number 20. It was a sweet gesture that was only a little undermined when Doom used his black magic to possess baby Valeria, sending Franklin to hell. Reed trained with Doctor Strange's astral form to learn enough magic to free Franklin before taking Doom on with the rest of the team. Reed pointed out that Doom owed his power to superior magical forces, and those demons rose up to capture Doom, while the team saved Franklin. As Doom was being pulled into hell, he begged for Reed's help, saying he should have listened to Reed. But Reed knew he was lying, as all Victor ever wanted was for Reed to live in the shadow of his genius. And when Reed swore to move on and forget Doom, Victor left Reed with a gruesome reminder. The team stayed in Latveria, trying to maintain order in Doom's absence. In an attempt to save Doom, Reed pulled his mind from hell, only for it to land in Sue, then Johnny, and finally it landed in Ben, where Doom's consciousness taunted Reed to kill him before he could kill Johnny. Ben was able to regain control just long enough to tearfully ask Reed to kill him, which he did. But if you think the Fantastic Four were going to let a little thing like death stop them, you haven't been listening for the last hour or so. Reed stole Ben's body from the morgue, believing there was still a faint spark of life within him. And while Reed had been unable to build a vehicle to reach the afterlife, he remembered that Doom did. Although it was the one that blew up and scarred his face, as originally seen in 1962's Fantastic Four Annual number 2. The team found Ben and even met God, who shared wit and wisdom about the mysteries and joys of existence, explaining that the form God took was a reflection of what it meant to them. Enough said. God fixed Reed's face and drew Ben back into his thing form before sending them back to Earth with a going-away present of a sketch of a happy, elderly Fantastic Four. After the government revoked their funding for scientific research and adventuring, the Fantastic Four found itself broke, as their money manager also swindled them out of their fortune. They took on extra jobs, but the mayor also evicted them from the Baxter Building, forcing them to move into the rundown Hotel Cheshire in Washington Heights. And while they were able to raise enough money to move back into the Baxter Building, that's when Child Protective Services took away Franklin and Valeria, saying they were living in an unsafe environment. But CPS quickly returned them when the safe house they were supposed to be in was almost immediately blown up. Oh, and Doom? He escaped from hell amidst the chaos that was caused by the fall of Asgard during Ragnarok, as seen in the Thor Disassembled storyline. Doom followed Mjolnir out of hell and back to Earth, where he quickly reclaimed the throne of Latveria. After a battle between the New Warriors and a group of supervillains led to the destruction of Stamford, Connecticut, and the deaths of 612 people, including former team member Namorita, public sentiment turned against superheroes, and one of their targets was Johnny, who was attacked and beaten outside of a nightclub. In response, the government called for superhuman registration, instigating a superhero civil war, which divided the heroes into two groups: the pro-registration heroes, led by Tony Stark, and the anti-registration camp, led by Captain America. Reed gave his scientific expertise to Tony's side, designing a high-tech prison in the negative zone. When Sue tried to talk to him about it, arguing that the law was wrong, he refused to even discuss it. Sue said she would have done anything for Reed, but he was not the man she married because he always did what was right and was never afraid of anything. Reed replied, "I think you should leave now." And Sue left with a recovered Johnny to join Captain America's side. Ben, unable to decide between the two sides, decided to leave the country for Paris. But he returned in time for the final battle, where Captain America surrendered and Sue returned to Reed. Afterwards, Reed and Sue decided to leave the team to work on their marriage, bringing in two replacement members, Black Panther and Storm, who had recently married. When Reed and Sue returned to the team, they were confronted by future versions of Namor, Black Panther, and Dr. Doom, who claimed that one of the 100 ideas that Reed came up with to save the world during Civil War would devastate the future. That idea? Fix everything by ending hunger, poverty, disease, and war, among other things. The future heroes confirmed that the Reed they knew went through with it, reshaping the world into a utopia. But he also became erratic when Sue left him for Namor. The present-day Reed responded by shooting Namor and Black Panther, arguing that they were androids controlled by future Doom. The ensuing battle was quickly halted when they were joined by a future version of the Fantastic Four. They revealed Doom was lying, and Reed's plan actually led to a utopia, one that Doom was desperate to change. The combined Fantastic Four teams dealt with future Doom by sending him to an alternate timeline where Reed and every other superhero was dead, giving Doom a chance to tame an entire world. The future Fantastic Four returned to their time, and Sue asked how many people Reed needed to change the world. The answer was 4. Around that time, Valeria's nanny, Tabitha Deneuve, revealed that the youngest Richards child was super intelligent and was already almost as smart as Reed. Tabitha turned out to be an alternate version of Sue from 500 years in the future, who'd come back to use the body of Galactus to create a time machine to save the 8 billion people of her future world. But she'd had to kidnap Doom for the plan to work, and he paid back her apology by killing her. Present-day Sue buried the future Sue in Brooklyn's Greenwood Cemetery, saying she died to save our entire future, and there's no greater honor than that. Valeria confessed her super smarts to her family and soon started working in Reed's lab, and all this attention had Franklin asking Santa for superpowers like the rest of the family. As he worked on his plans to fix everything, Reed found himself recruited by the Council of Reeds, a group of variant Reeds from across the multiverse who worked together to solve interdimensional problems such as hunger and the killing of Galactus. Reed decided to join the council, only for it to come under attack by the immensely powerful cosmic beings known as the Celestials, forcing Reed to flee back to his universe to gather enough weapons to turn the tide. But when Reed discovered that the council didn't allow members to maintain attachments to their families, as the cost of solving everything is everything, he left. And he remembered something his father Nathaniel once told him, that he wanted Reed to be what he wasn't. A better friend, a better husband, a better father, and to be a better man. To work on his goal of fixing everything, Reed launched the Future Foundation, bringing in young minds to help shape the future of society. The members included Franklin and Valeria, along with the android known as Dragon Man, a longtime, now reformed foe who first appeared way back in 1965's Fantastic Four number 35. 4 members of the subterranean Moloid race, Mick, Tong, Turg, and Kor, who the team had rescued from the city of the High Evolutionary. Also, Bentley 23, a clone of the Frightful Four's leader, the Wizard, and Alex Power, former leader of the child team Power Pack, which once had Franklin as a member. After learning about the Council of Reeds, Valeria teleported to Latveria to get the help of her Uncle Doom. She'd become convinced that her father had made the wrong choice in abandoning the council and asked for Doom's help. Unfortunately, Doom was in no position to aid her, having suffered brain damage when he tried to siphon off the contents of Bruce Banner's brain during the World War Hulk's storyline. Valeria offered a deal. She'd find a way to restore Doom's mind if he agreed to help Reed. Doom agreed. During an attack by Annihilus, Johnny sacrificed his life to save Ben, Franklin, and Valeria. So, Valeria gave the Future Foundation a new goal: kill Annihilus. To help fill his absence, Johnny left behind a will, asking his longtime friend Spider-Man to take his spot on the team. Reed, on the other hand, added Dr. Doom. While battling the Kree, the team discovered that Johnny was alive. While he was in the negative zone, he'd had to fight in Annihilus's gladiatorial fights, getting repeatedly revived and rebuilt by Annihilus's technology after each brutal bout, until Johnny led the gladiators in a revolt during this latest invasion, defeating Annihilus. And Johnny used Annihilus's Annihilation Wave to help drive off the Kree. Meanwhile, the Future Foundation kids, plus Doom, Kristoff, and Nathaniel Richards, traveled to the headquarters of the Council of Reeds, only to come face-to-face with the Celestials. Doom offered to hold the line to give them the minutes they needed to close the bridge. Only this was all a plan by Nathaniel Richards and Valeria to get Doom to sacrifice himself, which he did. But it didn't stop the Celestials from emerging into our world. The team escaped with the help of Power Pack, only to soon meet future versions of Franklin and Valeria. Franklin shared his power with his future self, who took on the Celestials before resurrecting Galactus, who tore the Celestials apart. Afterwards, Reed, Nathaniel, and future Valeria rescued Doom, who managed to survive the battle. Nathaniel left to travel the multiverse, helping orphaned Reeds, while future Valeria left to travel the universe, and future Franklin wished goodbye to his parents before returning to his own time. After finding something weird inside his arm, Reed realized he was breaking apart at a molecular level and grew afraid that the rest of the team was too. To find a cure, he decided to take the team on a year-long road trip across the universe. They'd use time travel to return only minutes after they left. But in case they were delayed, they also chose replacements for themselves: Scott Lang, She-Hulk, Medusa, and Johnny's pop star girlfriend, Darla Deering, who could battle while wearing Ben's old Thing armor. But what should have been a 4-minute gig turned indefinite as the family ship didn't return. A couple days later, they were approached by an older version of Johnny, who said that the Fantastic Four were dead, killed by Doom. Not just any Doom, but Doom the Annihilating Conqueror, a combination of Doom, Kang the Conqueror, and Annihilus. Scott directed the energies of the Future Foundation to stopping Doom. And this was personal for Scott, as sometime earlier, Doom had killed his daughter Cassie during the Avengers Children's Crusade story. Don't worry, Cassie was later resurrected. Regardless, it was fitting that Scott was ultimately the one to take down Doom after he realized that he could use his Pym particles to increase his strength. On their trip through time and space, the Fantastic Four started losing control of their powers. They soon ran into that older Johnny that the replacement team had met, only to discover he's not from the future, but an alternate timeline. To find a cure, they traveled to his homeworld, where they met and teamed up with depowered alternate versions of themselves. That sickness affecting the original Fantastic Four? It was this team's powers, which they'd sent out into the universe as a beacon to draw in help. The teams worked together to fight the combined powers of Doom, the annihilating conqueror, until Reed suggested fully combining the powers of both teams, which would give them exponentially more energy, but only for 4 minutes. They did it, taking on Doom and finally crashing their ship into him, destroying him. The team had their extra powers removed, curing them before they went home and enjoyed a nice barbecue on the moon. When a wave of monsters from Franklin's Counter-Earth, aka the Heroes Reborn Earth, invaded New York, Reed created a neural bomb that stopped them, but also robbed Johnny of his powers, as his DNA had adapted to the negative zone. So, the Human Torch quit the team. They were put on trial for the damage the monsters caused, which they lost, along with ownership of the Baxter Building. S.H.I.E.L.D. also took custody of the Future Foundation children, except for Valeria, who'd moved to Latveria to try and persuade Doom to become good. Oh, and Ben was arrested for the apparent murder of the Puppet Master. Unable to live in New York or be with their children, Reed and Sue moved to New Eden, a futuristic community of tomorrow run by John Eden. But they soon realized that all of their recent tragedies were caused by Eden, aka the Quiet Man, who had been obsessed with Sue in college and had been orchestrating attacks on the team for years. He'd been working with the Heroes Reborn Avengers to take down the team and used the Psycho Man to manipulate Sue. The Fantastic Four joined forces with their regular foes, the Frightful Four, to battle the Heroes Reborn Avengers and the monsters, which turned out to be manifestations of Franklin's nightmares created by the Psycho Man. Franklin was able to use his powers to banish the monsters. And the combination of his powers and the presence of Jim Hammond, an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., and the original android Human Torch restored Johnny's flame powers. And while the Quiet Man escaped, the Heroes Reborn Avengers were quickly defeated. Inside Eden's building, they found the Puppet Master alive, clearing Ben of his murder charges and returning the team to its classic roster, just in time for it all to go wrong. After Black Panther managed to stop another universe from colliding with and destroying our universe, an event known as an incursion, he reconvened the Illuminati. Reed discovered that incursions were happening throughout the multiverse, with the Earths of each universe overlapping for roughly 8 hours before both universes were destroyed. However, if one of the Earths was destroyed before the 8 hours was up, the other universe would be saved. The group decided that the only way to save their universe was to destroy other Earths. When Captain America objected, Dr. Strange blasted him, erasing all memory of the Illuminati. Reed used an interdimensional portal he'd invented called the Bridge to travel to universes on the verge of incursions. However, during an incursion between Earth 616 and Earth 4290001, home to a group of heroes known as the Great Society, Reed and the rest of the Illuminati were unable to bring themselves to actually destroy the world, even to save their own. That is, except for Namor, who not only blew it up, he left the team and founded a team of supervillains, the Cabal, who were all too happy to blow up other planets. Reed and the Illuminati tried many methods to stop the collapse, including appealing to Galactus and the Celestials and trying to harness Franklin's cosmic powers, but nothing worked. Soon, there were only a few universes left. That's when Hank Pym, aka Yellow Jacket, returned from a trip through the multiverse to reveal who was behind the collapse. The Beyonders, a race of beings from outside the multiverse who'd been mentioned all the way back in 1980's Marvel 2-in-1 number 63. Created by the Celestials, these powerful beings became obsessed with evolving lesser beings. But, unable to enter any other universe themselves, they created the Cosmic Cubes, powerful devices that could reshape reality. And the Beyonder from the first Secret Wars was a child of their race who had accidentally gained access to the multiverse, only to later take on cube form in order to mature. Now they had decided to destroy the multiverse, emerging from their realm to begin destroying cosmic entities, like the Celestials, Infinity, and even the Living Tribunal, who was the personification of multiversal order. Not to be confused with Master Order, a different cosmic being that is a personification of Universal Order, who the Beyonders also killed. Their plan was to use each reality's version of the Molecule Man as a bomb, simultaneously destroying everything in the universe. Doom, Doctor Strange, and the Molecule Man confronted the Beyonders, with Doom managing to steal their power. But that caused a collapse of realities, forcing the rest of the universes to destroy each other until there were only two left: Earth 616, the Prime Marvel Comics universe, and Earth 1610, the original Ultimate Universe. As the two universes overlapped in one final incursion, the Cabal joined forces with the inhabitants of the Ultimate Universe, led by Nick Fury and the Maker, their version of Reed Richards. The combined group attacked Earth 616 in a desperate battle to save their universe. Meanwhile, Reed and the Future Foundation created a life raft to survive the destruction of both universes, fashioning it out of the body of the living tribunal. The heroes of the 616 universe struggled to protect it during the battle. As the incursion tore the planets apart, the life raft was hit with a blast that tore off the section with Sue, Johnny, Valeria, Franklin, and the rest of the Future Foundation children. Despite Reed and Sue's best efforts, they were lost. And soon, both universes destroyed each other too. What came next? Battle World. Not the one from the original Secret Wars, but a new one, cobbled together from different realities by Emperor Doom, who had survived the destruction of everything by wielding the power of the Beyonders to shape the universe to his will. And he ruled it with his consort Sue and his daughter Valeria, enforcing his will through his personal army of Thors, the Thor Corps, and through his right hand, the Sheriff of Agamotto, Stephen Strange. After 8 years of Doom's rule, a life raft from the Ultimate Universe, piloted by Thanos and the Maker, was found buried on Battleworld, followed shortly by the one from the 616 universe. The survivors of both worlds had survived in suspended animation and confronted Doom, who killed Cyclops before Strange scattered the survivors across the various parts of Battleworld. And for his disobedience, Doom killed Sheriff Strange. Doom tasked Valeria with finding the survivors, although he wouldn't explain who they were. Reed and the Maker teamed up to discover the source of Doom's power, while Namor and Black Panther found Strange's sanctum, the hidden Isle of Agamotto. Inside, they found his hidden treasures, including the Infinity Gauntlet, the only thing on the planet that could smite a god. As the various teams combined to battle Doom's forces, including a giant thing, Valeria showed Sue what Doom had been hiding, introducing her to Reed, who she didn't remember. Thanos thought he was powerful enough to take on Doom, but that proved untrue. That's when Doom was confronted by an Infinity Gauntlet-wielding Black Panther. But it turned out Doom's real power was the Molecule Man, who he'd kept locked away in his own realm to maintain Battleworld. Reed tried to reason with him, only to be attacked by the Maker, who was then destroyed by Molecule Man. Doom confronted Reed, but lost his powers when Molecule Man sided with Reed. The old foes tussled, with Victor demanding to know if Reed thought he would have done better with the power of the Beyonders. Reed said yes, and the Molecule Man then went and blew them all up. 8 months later, the entire cosmos had been restored, including the entire Fantastic Four family and the Future Foundation, with Reed, Franklin, and Molecule Man working together to reboot the multiverse, designing and building new realities. And Doom had been restored too, with a repaired face. Elsewhere in Earth 616, Ben and Johnny thought that Reed, Sue, and the kids were dead. So Ben ended up joining the Guardians of the Galaxy, while Johnny spent some time with the Inhumans and joined the Avengers Unity Division. Eventually, Ben found a message from Reed hinting that they might still be alive, prompting Ben and Johnny to travel the multiverse to find them. Ben and Johnny never did find the rest of the Fantastic Four during their multiversal travels, though. When they were back on Earth, Ben finally asked Alicia to marry him, and she agreed. But out in space, Reed, Sue, and the family continued their trip although Valeria had taken on the codename Brainstorm, while Franklin chose Powerhouse. When they encountered the Griever at the end of all things, the living embodiment of entropy, destruction, and the death of every universe, the team was forced to flee through various newly created realities, with the Griever destroying them along the way. Valeria crashed the ship to force Reed to make a stand, with the Griever easily taking out everyone. The Griever gloated about taking out the Fantastic Four, with Reed arguing that this was the Future Foundation, and mostly children. So, the Griever allowed Reed to summon the Fantastic Four from any reality to fight her. So he did just that, assembling just about everyone who'd ever been a member of the Fantastic Four, or, as Reed put it, his extended family. That family took on the Griever, destroying her support tech until she had only two options: leave the dimension or become trapped in it forever. So she left, vowing to return again. And while the Future Foundation kids stayed in space to find the now missing Molecule Man, the Fantastic Four, Franklin, and Valeria returned to Earth, back together at last, where Reed agreed to be Ben's best man. While the team was away, a new team called Fantastics had taken over the Baxter Building. So the Fantastic Four settled into a new headquarters at 4 Yancey Street, a building Ben owned, on the street he grew up on. Although, Reed and Valeria spruced it up by adding a couple extra dimensions to make it bigger on the inside. Then it was time for Ben's bachelor party, which saw him return for a bout with the Unlimited Class Wrestling Federation and partying with the Avengers and Spider-Man, while Alicia had exotic dancers described to her before they finally tied the knot. The newlyweds soon adopted 2 alien children, Joven, a Kree, and Akala, a Skrull. While traveling through space, the team landed on the planet Spire, which was populated by superpowered beings. One of them, the winged hero Sky, aka Kyla, claimed to be Johnny's soulmate and returned with him to Earth. The alien Cormorant attacked the Earth, looking for a mysterious artifact, only to open a container in Reed's lab that unleashed a destructive Zero Force, a primordial energy source that Reed had once locked away. Luckily, Valeria was able to turn it into a forever gate, a doorway to every point in space and time, directly under the Baxter Building. Unwilling to shoulder the responsibility of guarding the gate, the Fantastics abandoned the building, allowing the Fantastic Four to move back in. Unfortunately, Johnny's love life got even more complicated when his ex-wife, Lyja, returned to Earth with the kids from the Future Foundation through the Forever Gate. And when Lyja pretended to be Sky in front of Johnny, the real Sky flew off in a huff. Johnny responded in a very Johnny way by sleeping with the Latvian champion Victorious. The next morning, Doom proposed to her while Johnny hid under the bed. Sky broke up with Johnny as the team, with Black Panther and Namor, left to attend Doom's wedding. But before they could say their vows, Victorious confessed to sleeping with Johnny. Doom went berserk, ordering the execution of all the guests. During the fight, Doom got his revenge by transforming Johnny into an eternal flame that couldn't be extinguished and would set anyone ablaze with a touch. Desperate to extinguish his flame, Johnny tried flying into space, only to find that his flame still wouldn't go out. It turned out his powers were now fueled by cosmic radiation, making him a human star. The team was soon pulled into the galactic conflict known as the Reckoning War, which began when an alien race called the Reckoning tried to destroy the Watchers. It had started in the distant past, when the Watchers gave technology to a race called the Procyllians, which they used to attack other races. The other races of the galaxy used a doomsday weapon to destroy the Procyllians, turning 9/10 of the universe into a toxic wasteland, which the Watchers sealed behind a great barrier. To prevent it happening again, the Watchers took a vow of non-interference. But now, the Procyllians, who had reinvented themselves as the Reckoning, had returned to seek revenge. In an attempt to stop the war, Reed absorbed the knowledge of the Watchers, becoming all-knowing. Unfortunately, the human mind wasn't meant to hold that much information, so it started killing him as he slowly mutated into a Watcher. In the end, Reed was forced to sacrifice himself by using the ultimate nullifier, only to discover that it drew out the Watcher energy from inside him, curing him. Soon, the team traveled back to Spire, where their science was finally able to cure Johnny of his fiery condition. Just as things seemed to be going back to normal, Annihilus's forces escaped the negative zone and attacked New York. To get rid of the invaders, Reed sent them 6 months into the past, stranding them in space. But to balance the time travel equations, he had to send an entire city block 1 year into the future, including the Baxter Building and all of the kids inside of it: Franklin, Valeria, Joe Venn, and Dakala. Ben and Alicia were furious with Reed for separating them from their kids without even consulting them, and they weren't the only ones, as the city turned on the team for erasing an entire block, prompting Ben and Alicia to leave the city and the team to travel the country. After 5 months on the road, Reed had a chance to apologize, and the team reunited with a fiery hug. While they waited for the Baxter Building and everyone within it to reappear, the team worked out of the farmhouse of Ben's aunt, Petunia. Oh, and they ended up in an alternate universe where they met dinosaur versions of themselves, including Doom Dinosaur, who teamed up with Dr. Doom to merge the universes together, until Ben and Dinosaur Ben cleverly asked who was going to lead this new world. The two Dooms immediately turned on each other. Soon, the Baxter Building and kids returned. But the family decided to keep living and working out of the fantastic farmhouse, finally getting a taste of the normal life they'd been trying to achieve for years. That is, until One World Under Doom, where Dr. Doom conquered the world as Sorcerer Supreme, taking the title of Emperor Doom and ruling with the help of Doom Dinosaur. The Fantastic Four confronted Doom at the United Nations, only to be stopped by a group of loyal Doom supporters. That's when Doom proved his superiority by doing the one thing Reed couldn't: turning Ben human permanently. To restore Ben's powers, the team will have to travel back to the Big Bang, which leads to an all-new Fantastic Four series premiering this July. What else is next for the Fantastic Four? While there have been a few hints at the Fantastic Four in the multiverse seen through the lens of the MCU, the team will make their full MCU debut in the upcoming film Marvel Studios' The Fantastic Four: First Steps. With a focus on family, adventure, discovery, and a hopeful view of what's possible, First Steps sees Reed, Sue, Johnny, and Ben 4 years after gaining their powers, joined by Herbie, in a world with a retro-futuristic, mid-century modern feel, and up against the massive threats of Galactus and his herald, the Silver Surfer. And what lies ahead with Marvel Studios' Avengers Doomsday looming large? Stay tuned, true believers! And that is our extremely abridged summary of Marvel's first family, the Fantastic Four. Want to learn more? Sign up for Marvel Unlimited to access all the Fantastic Four comics we read and so many, many, many more. And read current and upcoming issues of Fantastic Four comics, including the Fantastic Four Solve Everything, Jonathan Hickman Marvel Premiere Collection, featuring a foreword by the Fantastic Four First Steps director, Matt Shakman. You can watch the Marvel Cinematic Universe films and original series on Disney+. And catch the Fantastic Four: First Steps, only in theaters July 2025. This has been Marvel Recap: The Fantastic Four.